Hey guys, welcome back to Foreign Reacts. Today we're going to be checking out the European Union versus the United States. So EU versus USA, 2017. This video is 2017, so it got 4 years on it. Well, not 4 years. We're actually in 2022, which is kind of crazy. But yeah. We got a couple years on it, but it should be still accurate to the most part, except for the EU no longer has you know who in their Brexit. Yeah, but either ways, who would win army slash military comparison? So we're gonna see what's going on right now. So smash that like button and subscribe, guys. I'd really appreciate it. Road to 6,000 subscribers, and I definitely want you guys to all be a part of it. Let's get it, guys.
The world watched in wonder when in 1993 the European Union was officially formed. Questions abounded. Would the UK and France finally be able to live harmoniously in perpetuity? Would Germany and the rest of Europe finally form an unbreakable alliance? With a currency to rival that of the US and the combined military might of 28 different countries, the EU could easily be one of America's greatest trading partners or one of its most menacing foes. Although the American and European alliance is the strongest today than it's ever been, we thought it would be interesting to compare the military might of these two powerhouses and determine who would most likely win in a theoretical war in this episode of the infographic show, The European Union versus the United States of America.
I think Europe could easily win. Yeah, and I don't back down when it comes to America, but I think Europe could easily win. I mean, come on, bro. They have more people, right? You guys got more people, right? I mean, like the allies that America has really comes from Europe. It's not like, okay, we have Canada, right? We got Japan, but Japan is not going to get into a war between the US and the EU. They're not. They're just not going to do that. So practically you don't have that ally, right? I don't see many people that would, so I don't know. 330
Although money isn't everything,
million.
the first major difference worth pointing out is military spending. The annual defense budget of the European Union, which still includes the UK even though they recently voted to Brexit, is $227 billion, or 3 times smaller than the United States' annual defense budget of $664 billion. When it comes to manpower, the EU has a population of 743 million people, with 1.4 million being active military.
That's where they're gonna have the strength. All we got over here is just 329, 331 mil, somewhere there.
Military personnel and 1.7 million being reserve personnel. The United States has a population of 324 million people, with 1.4 million being active military personnel and 1.1 million being reserve personnel. With programs such as Sabre Strike, the 7th Army Training Command, and the Atlantic Resolve, it is safe to assume that the close connection between the US and the EU has resulted in reasonably similar training for the Army personnel of each country. In terms of land systems, the EU and the US are also similarly matched. The EU has 6,700 tanks, 48,971 AFVs, 2,312 SPGs, 3,492 towed artillery, and 1,069 MLRSs. The US, on the other hand, has a fleet of 8,848 tanks, 41,000 AFVs, 1,934 SPGs, 1,300 towed artillery, and 1,331 MLRSs. Despite the US having a larger number of ground tanks, Germany makes one of the top-ranked tanks, the Leopard 2, which has been purchased in the hundreds by countries all over Europe. It should be noted that while the US has troops and missiles stationed in Europe, there are no European army bases in the US. This is an obvious advantage to the US, who could more easily bring the battle to European soil, keeping it away from the plants which manufacture American weapons, and again turning Europe into a war zone similar to World War II. Of the US missiles on European soil, the Aegis Ashore Missile Defense System, located in Romania, has recently gone online and is manned by 130 US sailors. This defense system is currently run by NATO, but in the case of a US-EU war, it would become an ideal base for the US on European soil. With regard to air power, the US currently has a larger and more modern air force with 13,444 aircraft, the most popular being the American-made F-16 Fighting Falcon. The EU has less than half that, with 6,751 total aircraft, the most popular being the Eurofighter Typhoon. Since the US and the European Union are on two different continents, it's important to take a look at each country's naval power. The EU has a total of 61 submarines, 102 frigates, 21 destroyers, 39 corvettes, 167 mine warfare craft, and 210 patrol craft. The United States, on the other hand, has 75 submarines, 6 frigates, 62 destroyers, 0 corvettes, 11 mine warfare craft, and 13 patrol craft. The two seem pretty tied.
I'm not really even sure why America technically doesn't really focus a lot on the water. For some reason, it's really the equipment that America really has strength in would have been. I'm just not sure why the U.S. always be focused on the air support mainly. I'm not sure, but I really do think air support is really more effective because it just is. All them submarines, bro. It would take a long time to get all that over here. Like it just takes way too long to go by ship and by boats and all of that. But the aircrafts, I know that the U.S. is gonna definitely have those to land, like the fighter jets and so on and so forth. But either ways, it's pretty interesting.
However, the EU only has 8 aircraft carriers compared to the US's 19.
Yeah.
In the unlikely scenario that nuclear weapons are used, the US has a stockpile of 6,800 nuclear warheads with 150 nuclear warheads located directly in Europe. Europe barely has 500 nuclear warheads of its own, split nearly evenly between the UK and France. As we all know, a major component of this military assessment is fuel, since almost every ground vehicle, aircraft, and naval unit needs fuel in order to operate. The European Union produces only 1.7 million barrels of oil a day and consumes almost 8 times that each day. It also has 5.6 billion barrels of oil in reserve. The United States produces 9 million barrels of oil a day and consumes 19 million barrels daily, though it has 37 billion barrels of oil in reserve. It is safe to say both countries would need to rely on importing oil from other countries. The EU and the US share most of their allies, and it would be very interesting to see.
That's the whole point. They share because they're okay, imagine that. You're an ally, so automatically the allies that you have are going to simply be the same, like both of you guys. Right? So it's gonna literally be, if that was supposed to happen, that would be a really psychotic, pointless war, I guess.
Who allies with whom? As many will point out, experience is also a major factor when assessing military prowess. The EU and the US have been involved in the same wars for the last decade. However, the US military exists as a unified entity, and the EU runs much of their military on a country-by-country basis, making communication and tactical planning much more complicated. When it comes to the all-seeing eyes from space, both the European Union and the United States run their own global navigation satellite systems. The US has GPS and the EU has Galileo, alien signals called selective availability. One of the main reasons the EU developed Galileo was due to its concern that the US could deny others access to GPS during political disagreements. The two came to a compromise, and the US is now in the process of replacing old GPS satellites with new ones that will not have selective availability enabled. So, who do you think would win the war? The US or the EU? Do you think there are factors we omitted that would make a difference? Is war between the EU and the US even a possibility? Let us know in the comments. And if you want to get a daily comparison or fun fact,
I don't think the EU would ever try to fight America, and I don't think America would ever try to fight the EU. Bro, there are way too many allies, bro. Like, literally, the EU comprises of the allies of America, right? When you take away the Asians and all of those, obviously. But the EU is practically America's strongest allies. Export, import, EU, right? So, no. I'm not saying that the EU is America's #1 import or export. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. So don't get it twisted. I'm just speaking about the mass of other countries that US imports and exports to. Literally is Europe. But either ways, that's that, guys. Leave a like on the video and subscribe. I'm out of here, guys. Peace.